Welcome to Why We're Fans. I'm Duran, co-host of this podcast. In all of our episodes, we cover the past, the present, and the future of all your favorite NFL teams. We love hearing your stories. We love talking NFL draft. We love reminiscing about the good old days. If you like the same things, then be sure to subscribe to this channel and like this episode. You can even leave a comment below if you have the answer to any of our questions. Follow us on Twitter to stay up to date on our latest interviews. And like we always say, win or lose, we're all fans. Enjoy the episode. Welcome back to another episode of Why We're Fans. How's it going today, G?
It's going good, man. How you doing, brother?
Not bad. You know, this is one of those weekends where reality kind of hits, where the football season's about to come to an end. This is our first weekend without football. So we got to survive this, hit the Super Bowl, then get on that draft hype.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it, man. I can't wait. Doing my homework already. You know, I got my favorites for the Niners already, so we'll see how it goes.
Of course. What you sipping on tonight?
Tonight, let's start it properly. I'm sipping on some Pulp Fission from Three Disciples out here in Santa Rosa. Shout out to them for sure.
I got mine ready to go next.
There you go, man. There you go. All right. Well, without further ado, let's bring on our guest. All right. He's the co-host of the Sprint Right Option podcast, and he's a writer for the 49ers Gold Mine, Mr. Jason Aponte. How you doing today, brother?
I'm great, man. Nice to be here with you guys. Excited to discuss how I fell into the fandom of what is it? Is it Niners Empire or Niners Nation? There's a big discourse about that. Like, can you guys can Gennaro? Can you? Because I see your hat.
I do have a little input on that, but go ahead.
Okay.
I mean, growing up over here, it was either 49ers or the Raiders, and Raiders always took over, you know, Raider Nation and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And it always seemed like 49ers country or 49ers empire around here. So we built an empire first. We got the 5 championships. So I think we got the empire, but it varies from wherever you go. But for myself, I think it's Niners empire for sure.
I was going to say the same thing. I feel like the Raiders got the Raider Nation. So I would run with the empire if I was a Niners fan.
Awesome. It's good to know. So I just make sure I don't commit those faux pas on Twitter or anything like that. Yeah. Lose a bunch of followers.
You'll hear it from those Raider fans, that's for sure. So we know you're getting ready to go to the Senior Bowl. I know I had a question for you about it. I think G has one for you as well. Mm-hmm. But, you know, it's not in the normal place that it usually is. We're going through all this COVID stuff right now, so it's not open to the public. And is this your first time going?
Yeah, this is my first press credentialed event at of any level, you know. But yeah, super excited, man. But yeah, go ahead.
First time. So do you think that this is going to benefit you guys and kind of give you a little more access because the public won't be there? Or do you think it's just going to be on total lockdown with the COVID protocols and stuff?
No, you know, I mean, I've been able to partake in, you know, virtual portion of it, you know, being press credentialed, you get both, right? And you know, I wasn't able to get out there early enough because, you know, we have a little one, me and my wife, and it's tough for me to leave her the entire time. So, you know, we came to a compromise like, hey, virtually you'll watch practice and stuff like that. And then, you know, you'll get out there Thursday, you know, for the game. But I think that, you know, it's really crazy about the COVID thing because this feels like a more juiced up Senior Bowl when you watch it on when you watch the practices. When I was watching the film, guys are really understanding that this is their last chance to raise their stock completely, right? The Senior Bowl was always looked at as the last chance for you to raise your stock, but now with no combine and probably limited pro days, you know, that's why you see, you know, Najee Harris joining. That's why you see Devontae Smith joining. Guys want to get their last little bit in, right? And this is the best place to do it. So this year's Senior Bowl has such a little bit more juice around the electricity. And I think you're right, you know, because it is closed off to the public and because, you know, when I listened to Matt Rule talk yesterday at his press conference, he said, our evaluation process is completely different this year. We have to go off of the film, Zoom calls. He goes, we don't get that personal touch. I thought the craziest thing that I heard him say was last season, he said he got into an elevator with someone who he will remain nameless, was supposed to be drafted very high. He said at the end of that elevator ride, he knew that player who was drafted very highly was not a fit for his team. And he said, that's crazy to me that you've only been in an elevator with somebody for 35 seconds, 40 seconds. And you could really understand between his demeanor that it's not. So that's all missing. And I think that this year makes the draft more of a crapshoot. So it makes more exciting. It's exciting for everybody around it, because now we get to we have our takes, and we really have to live with that, because we're not going to get another chance to really speak to any sort of stock boost because of, no combine and all that stuff. So
I feel you. No local days as well. You can't, they're not doing the local 100-mile radius type stuff.
Yep.
So no players allowed at the facility. So it's definitely going to be challenging for those scouts and GMs and stuff like that.
That's always crazy. You always hear hey, sell me yourself in 30 seconds. And this, draftee actually got to sell himself
in
the
elevator pitch.
Yeah, the elevator pitch, you always hear when, but it's crazy. I mean, Matt Rule's just not for me. You're done.
And to be fair, I only had a 20-minute interaction with him in the press conference, but man, he seemed like a really nice guy, cool guy on the level, was really, really engaging. You've seen press conferences where guys, Bill Belichick's going through the motions. Doesn't seem like he likes anybody. Matt Rule actually, sat there, answered all the questions for all of us. And, after I got a chance to speak with him, I got a better understanding of him. Now, Brian Flores, I'm scared to death. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to ask that man a question. I think I'm just going to tiptoe around the dude. I won't say anything to him.
Yeah. Just smile and nod, man. Just
I'm just going to and just walk away.
Yeah. G, what you got about the Senior Bowl?
Well, me being a former receiver myself, I always like to see the receivers out there and who gets to shine. I mean, we saw it a few years back with Andy Isabella going against Rocky Sin, how that went, and Trent Taylor when he was back there. This year, like you said, it's super juiced up. You see the competition out there. I see the highlights from Amari Rodgers, and me personally, a 49er fan, I think the receiver 3 is a hard, that's a hard need for us, I think, because I don't think KB might have played himself out of a, kind of a team friendly contract. He might be moving on, which is okay. But what I'm really interested is in the trenches. I mean, a little bit boring for us. I mean, either on the offensive line or the defensive line. So I'm curious, is there a pass rush specialist that you're looking at?
I mean, I think it all boils down to where the 49ers pick. I'm trying to separate myself from trying to, look at players that only fit the 49ers, right? Shaka Toney is a name that jumps right out at you because of where he may be available. He has some tough reps today. He tried to spin move and didn't work. He kind of got put down. You realize that type of stuff doesn't really fly, especially with these guys that are going to be going up higher. Shaka Toney's definitely somebody who really jumped off the tape yesterday for me. Jabril Cox from LSU. So he transferred from
North Dakota State, right?
Yes. So he was getting reps. And again, this is a tight end. You usually don't want to leave your tight end covering edge rushers or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But man, he really made, I believe his name is Quentin Morris from Bowling Green. He really put him in a blender with just a left foot, jab outside and just blew right by him. What I was really impressed with was that move. But then when he got into one-on-one drills with covering, man, the guy's smooth, fluid hips. He looks really good. Jabril Cox is somebody who after day one really caught my attention, and he's not a pass rushing specialist per se, but a guy who can cover and do that. And, isn't somebody that people are really juiced up about. I really like the prospects of him, man. And yeah, Shaka Toney, I expect him to have better days. Today wasn't one of his better days. I haven't had a chance to fully dive in, but from what the clips that I saw, yeah, he has some tough reps today.
Nice. Are both Surratt brothers out there?
I think so, if I'm not mistaken, man. That one Surratt brother made a catch today. I was about to curse. I'm sorry. That's how excited I got, man. But yeah, if you guys look it up on Twitter,
man. It's all good.
Oh, okay. So we can curse here. Yeah, he made a fucking play. Oh, man. It was amazing, man. And you can look it up on Twitter, man. And I encourage you to, man. That kid's a baller, man. But, Amari Rodgers, again, man, I'm glad that you brought him up because, I like the idea of him as the third receiver because, like you said, Kendrick Bourne is solid. Okay. I'm not trying to dismiss him or anything like that. Undrafted free agent, all that stuff. That's great. But Amari Rodgers being third with, Ayuk and Debo and Kittle. Good gosh, man. He runs a little bit like Debo, almost like a little bit, right? He plays with sort of that edge too. He even ran an end around today, which I tweeted out, which I was like, doesn't this look familiar? Literally the same exact play. Plays a little bit bigger than his size. He had some great releases on one-on-ones yesterday where, beating press, getting inside, beating press, getting outside. Like, so, that's the thing. I just spoke with a few people that I really respect, who understand the game and understand scouting. They tell me on those drills, like, you really can't get mad at the defensive backs because,
I agree.
There's no one else there to help them, and the wide receiver always has the advantage. But they said, watch the first 2-3 steps. That'll tell you who really, really wins the rep. And that's what Amari Rodgers was doing consistently yesterday that I saw.
Perfect. Yeah. Those DBs are set up for failure out there doing those drills. So when they shine, they shine.
Yep, that's for sure. All right. Well, we're talking your ear off about the Senior Bowl, but let's get into some questions. Ready for some questions there, Jason?
Yes, for sure, man. Let's do it.
All right. Go ahead and kick it off there, Durant.
All right. Jason, we want to know how it all started. How did you become a Niners fan? People have all types of stories, from it's their hometown, it was their favorite player, family tradition. What's your story?
So I'm a New Jersey native my whole life. My father is from the Bronx. That's where the Yankee thing comes from.
Yes, sir.
Like my father is like, when people come to me about the Yankee thing, it's like, you can't be a bandwagoner when your whole family is from the Bronx, literally minutes from the stadium, so my father, he went to Indiana University, played a little ball out there, basketball, during the time when, Indiana was, candy stripe, pants, running things, it was almost there. I think he was there the year before they went undefeated, something like that. But while he was out there was a little quarterback from Notre Dame that was out there playing Joe Montana. And, when my father used to describe him to me, when he used to watch him, and the buzz around him in Indiana. And you have to remember, Indiana is a hyper religious place. Mm-hmm. He described him as Joe Montana as Jesus in cleats, bigger than life, and he said that once he found out that he was going to the 49ers, he just followed him, and I liked who my dad liked. So when my dad, met my mom and, he brought me into this world in 1984, it was that, there's pictures of me wearing Joe Montana jerseys, during the Cincinnati, Super Bowls. And, and I wake up remembering things around 1991. So, my dad was the one who passed it down to me. It's funny that you guys bring this up, and I'm glad that we're talking about it because we just saw Tom Brady put himself into the Super Bowl. So my father called me, I think it was the day after. He goes, hey, do you have a sec? And I'm like, do you have a sec usually isn't something? Yeah, like, like when your father says, do you have a sec? He's either about to yell at you or maybe like, something important happens. So he goes, hey, man, he goes, I want to tell you something. He goes, Joe's my guy, right? He goes, I think Tom Brady's the GOAT now. And I was like, you're not wrong, Dad. I was like, you have to look at it. He goes, for him to go over there and make the Super Bowl in his first year. I was like, yeah, Dad. I was like, I'm not certain that you can find anybody like that. So yeah, that's where it all came from. But it's just funny that you guys are bringing this up and my father literally just confessed something to me that he never would have confessed even last year or the year before that. He's just basically given up the idea that Joe's still the GOAT because it's hard to argue against Tom at this point.
Shout out to Pops, man. Shit.
Exactly. So it was passed down pretty much from your tradition, family tradition. Have you said that you've taken over your dad as the biggest Niners fan in the family?
Easily, and sad story, and you guys can look at him however, and he'll admit this too. He stopped being a 49er fan. Mm-hmm. He was a Giants fan when he went over to Indiana. And then he went over to the 49ers. Me, I'm not leaving, and the reason that I'm not is because being a 49ers fan behind enemy lines here with the Giants has given me ultra disdain for the Giants and their fan base because, when I was a kid, there was no discussion about the Giants. They were a poverty franchise for a long time when I was a kid. And I used to walk into school and say, who you like? You like the Giants? I would just be like, shut up. Stop. Like, if you're not a Cowboys fan, stop talking to me. Stop talking to me about football, But unfortunately, living over here after, obviously, I don't want to bring up an old wound, the NFC Championship game, they win that Super Bowl. Then they win that one against the Patriots. I've had to take my lickings over here, and it's been rough, for a while.
Yeah, I bet.
I feel you. When you were growing up in Jersey, did you meet or know any other Niners fans that you could kind of shoot the shit with or watch the game with?
Yeah, and you guys know this, right? I mean, you as a Cowboys fan, you as a Niners fan, this, right? When the teams are doing well, you're always going to find fans of them, right? So there would be a few pop up here and there, maybe not as brash as I was because, I just understood the gap difference between my team and pretty much everybody else's team that anybody liked in school. And it's the same thing that happens now, right? The 49ers pop out in 2019. I go to week 1 in Tampa. the whole stadium is Niners fans. You know, it's always on the back of success. Always, you know, things are always going to get thinned out when things aren't going well. But as soon as the team shows some success, people are, oh, well, I've been, you know, oh, well, you know, I've always been. Have you? We'll see.
Think about it.
Yeah,
exactly. Now, I know I've had this problem growing up and just being a fan of a team outside of their state. Back in, you know, before NFL Ticket, before all the streaming sites and stuff like that, how were you able to watch the Niners play? Was it like the Yahoo, you know, just following the ticker, radio, anything like that?
If we're talking before streaming, right? And I'm going to date myself, right? I'm 36. So remember, you know, it was either the game on 5, the game on 2, and then once that game was over, you turned over to NFL primetime, and then you went to the Sunday night game. And that was it. I had to get how the 49ers won from highlights, from reading the newspaper. You know, it was hard, you know. So to be, you know, I would definitely say that as a kid, one, you know, the mental capacity to process all the things about salary cap and all the things that I'm interested in now as far as scheme and all that stuff, that was not there. You know, you can't do it. You know, you can only just go off the information that you had. So I wasn't the most informed 49er fan, unfortunately, because I just didn't live in the area. But, you know, unfortunately, I knew everything about the crappy Giants and the stinky Jets, you know, because I just lived there and they would always be on TV. And, you know, and for the most part, you know, the Cowboys too. The Cowboys were always on, you know, and I mean, it's just, you try to keep up with the team as best you can, but, you know, you're just given what you're working with. Before the internet, it was nearly impossible to do that.
Yeah, back then you didn't have the all 22 the next day.
Nope.
Yeah, that stuff.
Shout out to Bob Salah and the Jets, man. Shit.
Yeah, man, I'm so happy that he's over here. I can't wait to watch his progress over here. You know, the best thing about being a 49ers fan over here is all your Jets fans hit you immediately. How do you feel? And I would tell them, congratulations. I was like, I don't have to tell you anything. Congratulations. You got your guy. You're going to see a change. Whether you win 5 games, 6 games this year, you will see a change. You're going to see the change. They're not going to play like they did with Gase. They're already more juiced to play with you when you were a candidate, let alone the actual head coach. So, the Jets are going up, man, and I'm happy for them.
Yeah. Exactly. I always like to ask, do you remember your first Niners jersey or piece of memorabilia that you got?
Absolutely, I do. So, my father bought me a Steve Young jersey. Wasn't even my favorite player though at the time. Jerry Rice is still my GOAT. Always going to be my GOAT. You know, with Terrell Owens being right behind him, right? Because I have an infatuation with receivers. Like when I do film, it's usually for receivers because I love the beauty of the releases. I love the beauty of footwork and how you get yourself open. Like it's so awesome to watch. But it was a Steve Young jersey, you know, and it was a Christmas where I got a Steve Young jersey and a Jerry Rice plaque. If I had my way, I probably would have flipped the idea of, you know, like, okay, give me the Rice jersey but as a kid, you were super, you know, juiced to have that Steve Young jersey. And, you know, when you went back to school, you know, you didn't feel bad about wearing it because again, you're a Giants fan, you're a Jets fan, I'm a Niners fan. You're just going to have to watch me be glorious in this red Young jersey.
Exactly. Standing out.
What brand was that jersey, man?
Wilson.
Yes.
So that's really funny, man, because it's so crazy when, you know, because a lot of the things that I like as far as gear are the retro things, right? I get my hands on the shark tooth hat, all those retro shirts, you know, like with the 5 rings. Like if I could get my hands on like a Tasmanian Devil or a Bugs Bunny one where they're wearing a Niners jersey or something like that, bro, that would put me over the top. But yeah, man, Wilson used to do those jerseys, starter, you know, champion, you know, like it was so broad, and now it's just one company that does them all now, right?
Yeah, they buy them out for like 10 years at a time. So
shit, my first jersey was Pro Ready Game Day.
See, I mean, and that's the thing. Like even just now, like right now, if you look on Fanatics, you'll see Nike, you'll see Pro Line. You know, I think that's the other one, and then there's like a Fanatics brand one. You know, but for the most part, it's all Nike.
Yeah, we had an Uncle Ray who had all these memorabilia of like all kinds of different teams, and he had a Bugs Bunny wearing a 49ers jersey and Tasmanian Devil wearing a Raiders jersey on the same shirt. Like, man, if I could get my hands on that shirt, I'd rock it. I mean, that's
of course.
Hell yeah, absolutely.
Of course. Go ahead, G. What else you got?
Let's see here. So did you ever get a chance to come out here to either Candlestick, you know, Kezar? I mean, I know you're not that old, but you know, Candlestick or Levi out here in California to watch a Niner game at all?
I haven't, man. And this was the year I was going to. Unfortunately, last year I did road trips, did Tampa, that horrible Washington game because it was so close to my house. I drove there, but that's the worst football game I've ever been to in my life. And FedEx Field is a dump, an absolute dump. And then, the final trip of the year, unfortunately, was the Miami trip. But I haven't been out there, man. And everything clears up, then I will be out there 2020 easily. But this was going to be the year, that 2021. I mean, this was going to be the year in 2020 that I was actually going to get out there. But 2020 had better ideas. So yeah, I've never been to Candlestick or Levi's either. So that's my biggest regret, is never being at Candlestick before, it went away.
What was your first game you've ever been to, the 49ers or pro football?
So pro football, I, been to a bunch of Jets games, Giants games. That was, whatever. Like I would just go there and usually root for the other team just to be a jerk, especially as a kid. And my father was huge. So if you wanted to say something, my dad had my back, bro. I was good. But first 49ers game, that's a good question. Got it. I remember now. Okay. It is the year, Chris Borland's first year. Chris Borland's first year. You guys remember? I mean, I don't know if you remember. It's I think it was right after the last NFC Championship game. Yeah, against Seattle.
Number 50.
Right. It's against the Giants.
To single-handedly bring down Marshawn Lynch.
Right, exactly. So it's against the Giants. It's Odell Beckham's second year, I think, or something like that. It's one of those. It's definitely this game, but it was really close. Yeah. A good friend of mine took me to it. And Eli Manning threw 5 picks in this game. He threw 2 to Borland. And I remember it clearly. Cap hit right before the half started. Cap hit Michael Crabtree over the middle for like a 59-yard and just mushed the guy down and ran it in. And the 49ers basically won because Eli Manning was like a walking dumpster fire that day. Went there with my gold jacket, screamed at people's faces. It's a real moment, even if it was just a win. I let out a lot of aggression that I had towards Giants fans because of the way they had treated me post that championship game. So that was really fun for me.
Hell yeah, man. You got to let them hear it.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Right. Anything else, Chi?
Not how it started, man. We're ready to move on to the next one.
So moving on, you already spilled the beans. We know who your favorite player is, Mr. Jerry Rice. I mean, it makes sense probably through your teens and all your young years. He was probably the best player in the NFL, won 3 Super Bowls for your team. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, I mean, and then, I didn't learn any of this stuff until later on. But my father would always tell me, like, Jerry was never highly regarded in the draft or anything like that. And
16th overall.
Mississippi Valley State.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's what I mean. Like, that's what he means. Yeah. Like, he doesn't mean, like, he means, like, out of college, right? Like, Mississippi Valley State, and my father would always tell me, this guy works his ass off, and I didn't understand that till later on. When I found, when you watch, Football Life and you find out that he used to catch bricks, and
run hills,
you understand that talent means something, but the heart of a winner, I know that sounds cheesy, I know that sounds like, like movie quote-ish, but yeah, exactly, man. Like the will to be better, right? That's Mamba mentality for sure.
Exactly.
Man. Like that, the will to be better, right? You know that there's guys more talented than you, but nobody's going to outwork you and nobody's going to outperform you because when the lights are on, you play at a different speed than that guy does.
Yeah.
Yeah, you brought up 2 guys for sure, Jerry Rice and T.O. earlier, and those guys worked harder than anybody else. I mean, Jerry and Walter, they had their hills. It got a little bit more progressive when, T.O. was in the game for sure. But
T.O. was even one of those guys that wasn't regarded coming out, No.
Tennessee Chattanooga? No one wanted
right,
him.
That's what I mean.
Like, it was crazy. I was listening to an interview with him and he said, man, like I got my style of play by following JJ Stokes and Jerry Rice. And JJ Stokes was supposed to be the next GOAT. Of course, he wasn't coming out of UCLA. And then, you got T.O. just coming out of nowhere, just taking the spotlight, like how amazing that was. Like even on Jerry's last game, it was still T.O.'s game, man. Like that was so crazy. I remember that was the first game I watched where I cried because I knew my legend was going.
Right, that's insane, right? Because I felt the same way too. A tear runs down my eye. They carried Jerry off the field. Terrell Owens had 20 catches. What are we like? And I had already picked T.O. as my guy because I knew, I was like, okay, I know now. As when he caught that pass against Green Bay, I was like, yeah, that was such a hill to climb for, for the younger 49er fans. They may not remember, right? And that's why I understand some people that still hate the Packers. I don't hate the Packers as much. I don't care. Like if Aaron Rodgers won the Super Bowl this year, I would not be like, oh, those damn Packers. No, I don't have those feelings towards them. But at that time I did. And Jerry helped Steve clear a hurdle with Brett Favre because it felt like once the Cowboys stopped us almost every year, it felt like the Packers took that role later on and they continued to do it. So when he finally cleared that hurdle, I was like, all right, this is the guy I'm wrapping my arms around. And then, it only got better from there. As his confidence grew, you saw the antics grow. And once the antics grew, young Jason was all in on that. Obnoxious, loud, over the top. I don't care. Be better. Be better. Stop me from getting in the end zone and I won't dance. And that's how I always, talk about it with people.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have heard the Jerry Rice stat. I heard it like a year or two ago. I see it on here 2 years ago about if you separated his career into even and odd years, they're both Hall of Fame players. So if you did even Jerry, 12,000 plus yards, 100 touchdowns, 2 Super Bowl rings, 6 All-Pros. If you separated it into his odd years, he had 11,000 total yards, 106 touchdowns, 1 Super Bowl, and 4 All-Pros. And just to kind of put it into perspective, Michael Irvin, we know he got hurt a little early, but he had 1,100 or almost 1,200 yards, 3 Super Bowl rings, 1 All-Pro. So he pretty much has 2 Michael Irvin careers stacked on top of each other, which is that's GOAT stuff right there.
Insane. My favorite Jerry Rice stat, right? Randy Moss broke the touchdown record, right?
Mm-hmm.
In 16 games. And Jerry Rice set that record in 12 games in a strike shortened year. Stop playing with my guy.
Yeah.
Stop bringing up Randy Moss. Stop bringing up anybody. In a pass-centric league, it took Randy Moss 16 games to beat his record by 1. Stop playing with my guy.
Yep. So if he didn't say Jerry Rice or T.O., Duran, who would have you guessed?
I would have guessed it's because he's my favorite Niner is Patrick Willis. Another guy that, he left a little bit early, but to me, he was on pace to be one of the best linebackers of all time. Especially if they would have won that Super Bowl.
Guys, he's definitely up there. It was him and Bowman. Those are the last 2 49ers jerseys before I bought a Kittle. Those are the last 2 that I bought was Bowman and Willis.
There you go.
I mean, I could have guessed like recency bias. I could have said the 5th round draft pick, this guy out of Iowa, like you just said, Kittle.
That's my guy.
I could have just said the gold chain wearing, the Jerry curl having Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
Or I could have just said, the 2003 7th round draft pick, Ken Dorsey. No, but I ultimately was going to say the 2005, the 65th pick out of the U, Mr. Frank Gore.
Frank Gore. Yeah, Frank's here, man. And that's just something that if you're a 49er fan, Frank's in your heart, bro. And Staley too. I didn't realize, I bought a Staley jersey. I actually got one off Fanatics. It was just laying there like in like a clearance section. It was the 94 throwback. And I don't think I realized until Joe was like, it's like as soon as somebody said Joe Staley retired, I was like, oh my God, I love this guy. And when you start to go back and you look, the Joe show and the way he performed and everything, man, Joe's the man, bro. Joe, Frank, Pat, Navarro, even Cat, all those guys, man, it's just that group is always going to have a special place in my heart, man, because they were so close to giving me what I'm looking for, which is an adult championship. I'm reaching for it just like you guys are. I want to be able to have a championship where if I get so excited and I run down the street naked, that's not a problem because, I'm just that excited and I haven't had it in that long. Seeing a championship when you're 11 doesn't hit the same.
Yeah.
No.
I
mean, we had Eric Crocker on here before, and he said his favorite was Deshawn Goldstein. As soon as he said that, I had to throw up the hawk, man. That guy was a beast, tone setter. And the thing is, he'd always get fined, hitting her, but they'd always get revoked because, he led with the shoulder and he hit at the shoulder. Because he's a beast.
Dude, Dante Whitner would be thrown in a cage in a box down under a jail if he was playing in this era right now, man. Like that hit on Pierre Thomas in the divisional game, he would have been thrown out of the league.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They'd call him a monster. Yeah. He'd be fine.
All right.
One thing I did want to mention though about back to Jerry Rice is, you're not from California, so the rivalry between the Raiders and Niners might be a little bit different for you. How did you feel when Jerry Rice left to go to the Niners? Or to go to the Raiders? Sorry about that.
It's interesting that you posed that, right? Because as a 49er fan, I'm supposed to be outraged. Like I'm supposed to bang the table like, how? Yeah. Why there? I don't have the same feelings that you guys have, right, for this rivalry, right? So like me, I understood, like we just talked about on his last game, they're carrying him off the field. You realize this is it. Mm-hmm. So I already knew he was going to go somewhere else. I didn't care. I just wanted him to get a shot at the Super Bowl, which he did. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, Bill Callahan wasn't smart enough to change his offensive calls that John Gruden left around from the year before. But I can yell about that all for another whole podcast, because that's the illusion that John Gruden's a good coach. Yep. But to see him, it's crazy, right? Because most of the time, right, when you carry a guy off the field, it's because he's going to take a job somewhere and not be good. Those Raider years, good God, man! Yeah. Like he's there with Tim Brown and he's still dominating. He was dominant, man.
Didn't slow down.
It hurt my heart to see him with the Broncos and the Seahawks. Like I'm like, dude, just stop. Come on, man.
T.O. had a brief stint with them at the end too. Seattle, right? People don't remember that. Like I think it was like he had like a practice jersey or something on. Like there is an actual picture of him in a Seattle jersey. Yeah, and it hurts. It burns my eyes.
19, I think he wore.
Oh, that's so gross.
Who you, Keyshawn?
I got one more Jerry question, and we can move on if that's it for you, G. I always like to ask, because Jerry Rice split between two Hall of Fame quarterbacks, Joe Montana, of course, and Steve Young. If Jerry Rice was Batman, which one do you consider Robin?
Woo, man, this is a fire question. I mean, there's no real wrong answer to this, but I'll take what I learned when I got to speak to Jesse Sapolo one time on on one of these shows like this, right? Like something just like this. And, he laid out, Steve's my guy. We all love Steve. I talk with Steve all the time. Joe's Mr. 49er. And that's exactly what he said. He was like, it's always going to be Joe. And I think that even though I didn't get a chance to watch Joe because I only remember Joe on the back end, I'm not that old. Steve's my guy. Steve's my guy. But I think it's got to be Joe, man. Like, they had already won a title before he got there. But those three that they won, like Jerry Rice won a Super Bowl MVP off of all this, so I think it's got to be Joe, man. I really do. I mean, as much as it hurts my heart, Steve Young won a ton of MVPs, highest passer rating like in the history, right? Completion percentage somewhere in like the 70%. It's absurd. Yeah. But I think it has to be Joe, man. I think that, and a lot of people probably feel that way too.
Yeah.
Damn, can you imagine that controversy today? Like, oh man, Steve or Joe, man. Can you imagine
It would be Wall schemed everything open for Joe. He's not mobile in the pocket. Steve Young's mobile. You got to get this guy out of here.
Yeah. They're so lucky they don't have that, media and stuff that's going on today.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, man. Twitter's made it instant, right? So people don't get a chance to think about what they're sending, right? They just hit it, and then I have that remorse sometimes too, where I go back and I look through my time and I'm like, ooh, damn, maybe this one doesn't work really, So it happens.
Yep. Just one stat I want to throw out: Steve Young 85 touchdowns to Jerry Rice, Joe Montana 55. So there is a little gap there, but hey. You chose who you chose, and
I did.
You can't go wrong with either one of those guys.
Man, I'm telling Steve, Jason. Man, I can't believe you didn't like that,
I know, man, and that hurts, man. I hate it, man. Because Steve, I just called Steve my guy, and I just went behind his back and just said that about Joe, man.
Yeah. Steve's my guy,
but it's Joe.
All right.
Moving on to the next topic, we want to know if you have a favorite coach of all time.
Oh, I do. And this is
why is it Dennis Erickson?
Good God. I think that's another reason why I appreciate Coach Shanahan so much is because I remember Seifert on the back end. Mariucci was cool, You know, he was, you know, he did what he could with Jeff Garcia. I'm not going to knock him at all.
No.
Mm-hmm.
It's coach, it's Shanahan, only Shans. You look, man, and it's not recency bias or anything like that. You know, it's just that everything that I've learned about what I've learned in a short time about film is all based around just me watching his offense and saying, I need to learn what the hell's going on here, because one, it's duplicated across the league, right? Like you're going to see 2 more offenses run exactly like him, which brings the total to about 9. Which, you know, the league is a copycat league. So and I wanted to know the finer points of that. You know, read a book called, you know, the 2019 Offensive Manual by Bobby Peters. I suggest that for anybody who wants to learn a little bit more about scheme, wants to learn a little bit more about concepts and about what calls are for beating man and coverage. It really unlocked my mind. And then you start to just look back on, you know, what he did with Schaub, what he did with Matt Ryan, what he did with Brian Hoyer. The guy's a genius, man. And you know, and you know, whatever, flaws be damned, because he does have them. You know, every coach does. Bill Belichick does. You know, but his offense has made me such a fan of his because the innovation. And I understand that when people try to duplicate what you're doing, odds are you're doing a great job. And look at his coaching tree already. Matt LaFleur has won 26 games in 2 years. Sean McVay made a Super Bowl, you know, and it's only going to continue to grow. You know, Salah's out there now. That kind of counts as well, too. You know, the same thing with McDaniel, all those things. So it's Coach Shanahan, man. And might I add, one thing that has nothing to do with football, there's never been a drippier head coach in football ever in your life. You've never seen it.
My boy's out there wearing Yeezys, a straight bill hat. Like, he looks like he belongs in California. Because, like, I got friends who live out in the East Coast, and they're like, dude, why is your boy not folding his bill? And I was like, dude, that's a West Coast thing, man. I love it.
That's it, man.
Yeah. I just think if Shanahan has any success, he's going to win over so many Niners fans. And I think that's going to be the answer when he does get that Super Bowl, because he's been building a great team for the last couple of years. And I just think it's a matter of time before they get that, you know, that Super Bowl victory.
That's what's funny to me too. And I always try to tell people about this because they're like, yeah, it's year 4, blah, blah. Andy Reid, 20, how many years? 20 something, couldn't win the big game. Like, guys, it's not, there's no manual to this. Guys, get there. Now that Andy Reid's gotten that monkey off his back, oh, Andy's the GOAT. Yeah. Oh, everybody forgot about all the time management issues and all that stuff. So yeah, man, you know, like it's hard to just put like, oh, well, you got 5 years to win a bowl. It doesn't work that way. It does not work that way.
Yeah.
One thing I like about go ahead, man. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just gonna say, you did mention that it's a copycat league, and Saleh did take Mike LaFleur, your guys' offensive coordinator. So like you're saying, those schemes, those passing schemes, guys wide open and stuff, you know, that might be the new blueprint for the NFL going forward.
One thing I could say about that, I mean, they took our passing game, but you can't set up the pass without the run. And he was our passing game coordinator. And one thing that we did keep is Mike McDaniel, Dan Soder's best friend, and we promoted him to OC. And one thing that I'd like to say about that is that his dad, Mike Shanahan, was known for using a bunch of running backs, creating like finding, you know, gems. You know, obviously we just signed Jeff Wilson to a 1-year contract, and that's another undrafted free agent. I mean, our backfield is full of them. And that's one thing I love about Shanahan is that he'll find gems and turn them in, you know, out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You know, it's great to see. I love to see that. So
Terrell Davis is a Hall of Famer because of Mike Shanahan.
I mean, you got Drummond,
Olandis Gary, Mike Bell, like the list goes on and on, you know.
Alfred Morris, man, like
you know, Alf ran for 1,400 in an RPO offense with RG3, man. You know, and then the other thing is I'm glad you brought up the McDaniel point, right? And it's absolutely true. You can try to duplicate this Shanahan offense all you want. It's been duplicated, but not. It's been imitated, but never duplicated, right?
Hey,
and I think that the McDaniel, I was about to screw that all up. But I think that what makes this all intricate, really, for me, when I watch it, is that the use of the fullback is really to create these angles for the running game. And I think that's what's the beautiful part, right? Like, you know, you send those fullbacks on those pulls through the hole, and it opens up all these lanes and the motion, man. When you watch the motion and you watch the linebackers trying to figure out who has the ball, is it Debo, is it Mostert? And then the last thing that I draw to is, like, I love watching Shanahan start jabbing like a boxer in the beginning of the fight. Like, you know, like he's sizing you up. And that's what Tevin Coleman was used for last year. Guys want to make jokes about him all the time. That's fine. But Tevin Coleman was like, all right, I'm going to pound this guy in between the tackles. And then by the second quarter, I'm going to be able to unleash Mostert and see where I can hit them with. The chess match, the way that he sets up plays from one formation, show you something, then just run something completely different out of it. It's just like the guy, I would love to sit in the room with the guy and just have him talk to me. I'm not going to understand everything, but I'm sure that I would listen to that guy talk about offense like all day. His mind is incredible.
That's a great analogy. The one thing I'd always use that, I wouldn't use the box analogy myself, but I actually like that one better. I always use the, because I'm a baseball fan, obviously, you know, I'm a Yankee fan. I always use the baseball analogy like, oh yeah, the starting pitcher is Tevin Coleman, but the closer, Mo, that's Mostert. Like,
yeah, Mo.
And I was like, dude, like he'll close out the show.
Unanimous Mo.
Oh yeah. Let's get that right.
With everybody complaining about Hall of Fame stuff, I just, you know, I can't relate. Don't know, man. You know,
man, it's still so hard with the Hall of Fame stuff. I'm still so bitter. I think Roger Craig belongs in that. He was doing Marshall Faulk things before Marshall Faulk did that thing, and like he set that up. 1,000. Come on, dude.
Look,
that
like
started with
said,
Roger Craig.
If Terrell Davis is in, Roger Craig's got to get in. Come on,
he's got to get
stop
in.
playing. Yeah,
Totally agree. Do you have least favorite coach? I know G mentioned one of them, but can you think of a guy that you just couldn't stand?
Yeah, Mike Nolan. The suit pushed me over the edge. You know, like it was really and then when I found out it was a Reebok suit, it was really like, Joe, dude, launch this dude into the sun. Get him out of here, man. You know, and you know what I hate, and it kind of ties into some stuff that I see now. You know, for all the innovation that we just talked about and you know, the league being, you know, copycat, there's still a large portion of this league that continues to rotate in archaic dinosaurs because they're friends and they've been in the league. And you know what? It's time. The future's now, old man. And you got to get up out of here, man. And that's the thing. When I see Mike Nolan be brought back as a defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, sorry, I'm not even trying to like be funny. That's a joke. That's an absolute joke. I don't understand the thought process. And just because you're friends with Mike McCarthy and used to coach down the line doesn't mean that you need to be here in the league. Now you guys finally did the right thing and you bring in Dan Quinn. I like that, but it shouldn't have taken you a year watching Mike Nolan call plays before he said, yeah, we need to address this defensive coordinator position. So Mike Nolan, man, just again, a lot of guys get jobs in this league because they're friends with people or because they had one successful time. I could pick apart John Gruden. Like I just said, John Gruden has a whole year of this is the part about John Gruden that's funny. The Bucs had an all-time defense. Nobody ever wants to talk about that. Simeon Rice, Warren Sapp, John Lynch, Dexter Jackson, Rondé Barber, all these guys. Dexter Jackson won MVP.
Derek Brooks. Did you say?
Yeah, Derek Brooks, exactly.
Thanks,
See, I'm even missing guys. Yeah. So here's the part that nobody remembers. Tony Dungy's offense has scored more points than John Gruden's offense. What are you here for, dude? What are you here for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks, Mike Nolan's now on my most hated list now. That
yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Miserable this year. I couldn't stand it.
I didn't understand the calls, man. Like, if you're getting gashed in something, you know, like I understand not having the personnel to do things, but to fundamentally not adjust at all or even try something different, get them out of here.
The worst is when you just keep getting ran on. It's like you're just getting punished over and over again. So, yeah.
You know how demoralizing that is for a defense to know that guys are just getting 7 and 8 a game? Like, that's how the 49ers dispatched the Packers. Mm-hmm. Like, that game was over in the second quarter. Once you see that you can't stop that and Shanahan's gathering more information on you to run, you know that game's done.
Yeah.
Exactly, for sure. I mean, as far as, like, most hated coaches, I mean, I didn't hate the coach, but I hated Trent Baalke. The first year, killed it. Second year, I'm like, dude, what are you doing, man? I get it. Like, you ACL guys, like, does that mean we're gonna draft, you know, Reggie Robertson? Like, come on.
Marcus Lattimore, we can go down, you know, like, I was waiting for Marcus Lattimore because I was like, oh wow, look at what they got, you know. And then the thing is too is, right, you know, it's weird. I know he didn't draft Frank, but remember Frank like destroyed his leg, like, you know, and he fell in the draft because of that. Legs, right. And he didn't, you know, he fell in the draft and look, and he's the consistent Iron Man. Like, it's going to be 2075 and Frank Gore is still going to be toting that thing for 3.5, 4 probably every time.
He's going to be RB3 behind his son.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. All right. You ready to move on, G?
Let's go. Move on.
All right. moving on from favorite / least favorite coach, do you remember your first Niners memory? I mean, you guys were killing it, especially in the 90s, late 80s with Super Bowls and stuff like that. Do you remember any of that stuff?
I remember 95. I was
Okay.
11.
Chargers versus the Chargers.
Versus the Chargers, right? I remember that clear as day. And I remember, even as a kid after they beat the Cowboys saying, I don't care who's on the other side of this game. They're getting washed. And, sure enough, that's what happened. It's funny. When I asked Jesse Zapolo the same thing, I said, hey, I was like, for fans, it's easy for us to say. But did you ever have a feeling in your heart after you beat the Cowboys that the Super Bowl was over? He goes, we would have never said that ever. He goes, but yeah, it was over. Like we knew, it was done.
That was the Super Bowl back then, NFC Championship. Right. Yeah,
exactly. So my first real memory of the 49ers is 1991, Monday night game, I believe, against the Raiders. Jerry Rice breaks the touchdown record in that game. Well, he had 3 tutties in that game, I think. The bomb was the last one. And that's really the first game in my mind that I can recollect clearly at 7 years old. I remember watching it with my dad. I remember my dad, being super excited and me being excited. And I was like, you know what? I like that guy. He's really good, and sure, it's easy to pick a guy who had just broken a touchdown record, but he was on my team and, he's still my favorite player to this day. So, yeah.
What record was it? The single season or
the single season? He had just broken it. Yeah. No, not the single season. The career one in 91. Like he had, like, or was it? I think it was receiving touchdowns. It might be. I may have to look it up. It was one of those records that he had 3. He had 3 in that game. No, it was all touchdowns because he scored a rushing touchdown in that game.
Oh shit!
It was all touchdowns. Yeah, he even had a rushing touchdown in that game.
That was 91.
Yeah, I believe so. If I'm not mistaken. Okay. Yeah.
Duran, have your producer look that up real quick.
I'm looking right now. I produce my own show, but I was looking on there. But yeah, I could see, those are the type of memories that just stick in your mind, especially when you're like, yeah, he had a rushing touchdown too. It's like I have games like that are just ingrained into my head, and I believe it. It had to be something like that. But 91, I was like, I know that I didn't think it was the all time. I thought it was like a single season record or stuff, but I was 2 years old then. So what do I know?
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry. So that year was 1994.
Okay.
And he broke Jim Brown's record for career touchdowns. I believe, if that's what I'm looking at, breaks Jim Brown's record for career touchdowns in first game. No, that's definitely not it. Sorry, whatever. We'll look it up. But it was definitely something because they celebrated it. Like I had Jerry like in my mind, like lifting his hands up with the whole team, like grabbing him and everything. So it was something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember he was in triple coverage, wasn't he?
Yes. And he caught the pass. It was underthrown. He caught the pass and still got in, man. Like I'm gonna find that right now.
I remember that because my pops, he had a poster of that and he hung it up. And then my brother, who used to be a 49er fan back then, had it in our room. And I remember like, dude, that's so sick because it's just him catching it just like this. And I'm like,
yeah,
he's a beast.
Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah. Do you remember the transfer from Montana to Young?
I do, actually. I really do. And yeah, that was 94, actually. I'm sorry, guys. So I misspoke. It was 94 when I found it.
All good, man.
And I think it was receiver. Yep, needed 3 touchdowns to surpass Jim Brown. So that's what it was. He got the 3 to pass him. I do remember that because I remember my dad being really upset for obvious reasons. That's his guy. And you have to remember where Steve Young came from, right? Steve Young, was thrown into the fire in Tampa Bay. They never won a game, and was kind of left for dead, So when Joe Montana, right. When Joe Montana gets injured and you start to say, all right, Steve Young is the guy. And it's like, there's a large portion of the fan base that doesn't want to hear any of that. And I remember my dad not wanting to hear any of that, even to the point where I think I remember in, my hazy, memories, him saying, I hope he goes to the Chiefs and shoves it up the Niners' ass. And remember there was that game in 94, they win the bowl.
Yeah.
But it was exactly that. And I think my dad was happy, man. He was happy for Joe. So, I do remember it. I wasn't as attached to it. I wasn't, and especially when you make the transfer and Steve Young is like MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Like it didn't bother me. I didn't understand the significance then, but now that I'm older in hindsight, I could definitely see why people were upset about it and why they would be.
Yeah, that MVP fixes a lot of things.
Yeah, it definitely does.
For sure.
All right.
Do you have a favorite memory of all time? I mean, back to
Favorite Niner moment?
you guys have that Super Bowl. I don't know if you remember the catch 2, or I know you remember the catch 2.
Yeah.
Anything like that stands out to you?
Man, it's tough, man. Like recently, man, this past year, that Saints game was huge for me. Like, I loved it because it's just like that was such a good litmus test for them. Like, I just wanted to see them go in there. Yeah, go in there and win that game. The defense didn't perform well, but the offense, carried the day in that game, obviously. My favorite 49er moment, one that's always going to stick out in my head, is always just going to be the catch to the Jerry Rice one. Like, I love the Vernon Davis one, and I went crazy on that one, because, again, that was against the Saints. But you got to remember, T.O., and that hurdle at that point was the Packers. And, and you have to remember, T.O. had a dreadful game, had all the drops in the world.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was almost like, why are you even throwing to this guy anymore? It's clear that it was in his head. For Steve to go back to him right there to vanquish the Packers after Brett Favre just went right down, and it just seemed like, well, here we go again. The 49ers are about to lose. And then it's funny how people remember things. Jerry Rice fumbles in that game. But it never gets looked at because there's no replay. So he's ruled down. But the replay sure as day shows him fumbling, and that would have changed the game. But once Terrell Owens catches that pass, that's the one that I can hear the call, Owens. That like I can, and that's what I'll always hold on to with T.O., man.
Yeah, that was the game that pushed you past the Packers.
Exactly. And the Steve Young thing too, right? Like, it's so funny. Steve Young has so many hurdles to climb. Like, he had to beat the Cowboys, then he had to beat the Packers, man. Like, Steve
was
Young
that the monkey off the bat game?
No, the monkey off the bat game is a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So
yeah. But I mean, think about that though. Like, it's like he passed off. He finally gets through the Cowboys, and it's like, okay, we're good. And it's like, oh wait, there's this guy in Green Bay who's really good, and you're gonna face them every year.
I remember that for sure. I remember when I watched it. I remember watching it for sure because my mom was gonna hate me for saying this, but my mom was braiding my sister's hair, right? So as soon as she called it, all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, and I hear ow, because my mom pulled her hair, and like I just remember just jumping up and down, giving my dad a hug, giving my mom a hug, and at the time my brother was a 49er fan, so I gave him a hug, and how crazy that game was. Like you said, T.O. had a bunch of hurdles because he was dropping, like left and right. I'm like, dude, why they stop throwing to this cat? Like, this guy is done. And I was young, I was stupid, I didn't know the game now, and then like, just for him to catch it how he did and just get up and see his emotion, I'm like,
right.
That was the first time we saw T.O. cry.
Right. And not the last. Not the last for sure.
Not the last. He's an emotional guy.
That's such a good point too, man. Like, you could tell what he was going through in that game. There's no way that those drops weren't affecting him. And for him to come through at that moment, that's like release of just like all that anxiety that you've been building up. That's the biggest game he's ever played in at that point in his career.
Exactly.
I think Dwight Clark is the only one out of the catch not to cry.
He just was like, whatever.
Like, I expect it.
Business as usual.
Yeah, that's business as usual.
81 people were built different. Built different.
Like, their steroids were beer and cigars and hot dogs.
There is that. I think there's a picture of Joe Montana smoking his cigarette, isn't there? On the side.
No, that's Len Dawson. From the Chiefs, like before the Super Bowl, the first Super Bowl, he just said, but you're right though. That's how guys, like, there's a Family Guy sketch where like they're like, people were tougher back in the day. They're like, give me a donut with whatever, with like butter and like and all this, and the guy's like, you want cigarettes on that? He's like, what am I, Mary? Of course I want cigarettes on it. Like, like that's how people were built back then. So
real, man. That's my pops always says that. It's like, you know what Babe Ruth needed? Barry Bonds needed Balco and all that shit, but you know what, Babe Ruth, all he needed was a cigar and hot dogs and beer. I was like, oh shit, yeah, you're
that's
right,
crazy.
Pops.
And no off-season regimen, nothing like that. Just see the ball, hit the ball type shit, man.
Exactly.
I know you mentioned the Saints. The Saints game. What was it? 2 years ago now, where Kittle just manhandled them. Great play on the way to the Super Bowl. But one of the games that I remember was that week 17 versus the Seahawks. Actually, me and G had a couple of friends that were there for that game. They traveled up there. But man, it came down to the very last play, and it came down to literally inches inside the one I mean, that had to be a great moment for
Big
China,
play, Dre.
at the time.
Yeah. 2019 is so difficult to talk about. After that game, again, House of Horrors, Seattle, you never win there. Of course, it comes down to week 17. Of course, it comes down to the last moment because it's Russell Wilson. It's never going to be that easy ever.
Yeah.
Of course, it's 95 throwbacks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 94. Yo, this game is like the crowning achievement. And it's like after the game was over and they won the way they did, in my mind, such an idiot, I could put myself on Old Takes Exposed. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I think this team is just destined at this point, right? They just did something that I never have seen them do, and they won in the way that they did. And, Jimmy had a good game in that game. The defense played, obviously it came down to it at the end where Russell Wilson just started to heat up, and you knew eventually that was going to happen. You never say that they lost until it's 0-0-0. And yeah, man, you just had that. I had that feeling like, man, we get the first round bye. I don't care who's coming out the other end. I expected it to be the Saints. Once it was the Vikings, I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this is a joke. Like this is an absolute joke now because I had no chance. I had no chance in my mind that the Vikings were going to win. And then once they rolled them and they got to the Packers, I called my boss and I was like, I'm requesting February this time off or whatever. And he was like, where are you going? I was like, I'm going to the Super Bowl. So like, I was like, he was like, but the game's not over. I was like, I said what I said. I'm going to the Super Bowl, But yeah, 19 is so hard to discuss, man, because so much of what's going on with the team could have been solved if, you hold that lead at the end of the game, but hey, it is what it is, man.
I think that kind of brings us to our next topic, as in the worst memory being it's so recent. I know it was heartbreaking. 10-point lead going in and, Tyreek Hill over the top, Sherman getting beat. Does that take the gold for you for the worst memory right now?
It does right now, because it's so raw. I still, as much as a film junkie as I am, and like, trust me, I will lock myself in a room for 2 hours, which 2 hours feels like 10 hours when you're watching film with no sound and you're watching all 22. And the amount of concentrating you have to be able to do is like, I have to like give myself a break because I love film, but it's not always fun.
Yeah.
But I still haven't watched the film on that game. I just can't. Being in Miami and being down there, what an amazing week. This is all right before COVID too. So this is like the last thing that anybody was ever really able to do with any sort of like just walking around with no mask. It's so crazy. Like the next month, it literally changed to that. Like being down there, meeting Ocho Cinco, meeting all these players, meeting Navarro Bowman while he's down there, walking like these people are just walking on the strip at this point, man.
Yeah.
And then, I'll never forget this moment. And this is, my daughter's 3, and my wife and my daughter are here, and my wife never watches football. She doesn't care. And, that's fine, but she said, you know what, I'm going to watch. This is the biggest game of the year and you guys are in it. So she sends me a picture of my daughter. She's wearing her Jimmy jersey. She's smiling. And that second interception happens with Tarvarius Moore. And my wife texts me, oh my God, is this happening? Because that was back-to-back interceptions, right?
Yeah.
He threw one to Warner and then he threw one to Moore.
Yeah.
And I text my wife, I wish I was with you right now because I would hug the both of you right now because I thought that's what was happening, right? And then obviously whatever happens, right? So whatever happens in the game, right? You can almost see it happening. It's almost like it's a car wreck in slow motion. Once the 3rd and 15 happens, you're almost just like, oh no. But I think what's the worst part about it is I got a close-up look at Chiefs fans. And for anybody who thinks that, the Midwest is nice and easygoing, I'm here to tell you that it's not. I hadn't had a drop to drink that entire day. I was so anxious. I was like, I will not drink anything until this game is resolved and we win. And I go to the store and I buy a bottle of champagne and I pour that shit on my head.
Wow.
But walking away, wearing my Santa hat, walking down the strip, Chief fans were just walking up to me like, yeah, you fucking suck. Like and it's like, look, I'm not a violent person. I looked this one guy dead in his eye and I was like, you get the fuck out of my face right now. I'm gonna I don't let sports dictate my mood, but for you to see me walking, and I haven't said anything to anybody, wasn't obnoxious or anything like that, for you to run down on me and stuff like that, dude, you could tell you've never won anything. You could tell that, this is all brand new to you because, man, if the 49ers would have won that Super Bowl, I'm buying a bottle of champagne. I'm getting an Uber to the closest strip club, and I'm not going to remember the rest of the night.
Yeah.
I am not worried about Chiefs fans. Sorry, man. And that's my thing, man. I always thought that people in the Midwest were nice. But this one hurts more because the Chiefs fans are just not nice people at all, man. So if they lose this week or they lose the Super Bowl, I don't really care.
You'll be happy for that one person.
Man.
Yeah.
I remember watching it, and I was between two Super Bowl parties, and I remember we're up a half, and I always blame myself. I was like, man, I left at halftime and they lost. Like, it's my fucking fault.
It turned.
Man, I just remember I just spent the night like how I did the Ravens game. I just went home and I cried, and my fiance, she doesn't know football. So she's like, why are you? I was like, dude, I'm so emotionally attached right now, man. Like, my team just died right now. And she's like, I don't get it. I was like, of course you don't. Leave me alone. I just like,
It's the same thing.
I'm
with my cousin in Miami, and it's over. And he's a Packers fan. Also, by the way, when the Packers played the 49ers, he just texted me before the game. He was like, see you in Miami, bro. He was like, we're not playing winning this game. I was like, I know. But he was like, bro, what do you want to do? Right? Like, even still, right? There's still parties to go to. It's South Beach and it's after the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
I was like, dude, we're going home. I was like, I'm not doing shit. I don't want to do anything.
Yeah. That's very true, man. I mean, that one was very rough. I mean, even though, I had a bitter taste in my mouth for the Chiefs because that's where Jimmy G fucked up his knee. Of course, it wasn't their fault. It wasn't Jimmy's fault either. I mean, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But I just have such a bitter taste in my mouth from the Chiefs. Like, I don't wish ill will.
We're better. Yeah. We were better than them last year. And no one's going to be able to tell me any different, man. We just were all around. Save for a few plays, no one would have been able. Yeah. The 49ers were downright dominant last year. There was games where, like, you had no shot. It didn't matter who you were that you were coming in. Like, we put 50 up on the Panthers like it was nothing. And they were talking crazy before the game, man. Crazy.
Yeah. You want all the smoke?
Yeah, exactly. You know what's funny that you brought this up, G? The timeline and how we're going to remember all this.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo tears his ACL in the Kansas City game, and it ultimately gets you Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo loses the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, and it potentially alters who's going to be the quarterback, right?
Yeah.
It starts and ends with the Chiefs with the Jimmy G era because that might be one of the last games that you see him playing in.
Damn.
Did not realize that. Wow.
Boom.
Mind fuck.
That's a Ponte bomb right there, dude.
I don't even want to think about it too hard. I'm gonna start crying again.
Shit. I mean,
that's crazy.
I mean, I feel you on that one. I mean, we're Duran. You got anything else? I mean, I don't want to keep twisting the knife.
Yeah, I know. There is moving on from the Super Bowl stuff. We know that sucked really bad. One thing I did want to mention is that year where Harbaugh got fired, it seemed like the whole team left. I mean, you guys lost 12, 13
Everybody
starters,
retired.
14 starters. Yeah. Like, I mean, at that point, it had to feel like because you guys just went to the Super Bowl. It kind of felt like the dynasty or the top team was falling at the time. Like, how did you feel that year?
It sucked, man, because, again, that's the last year that we have Frank. It's the last year that we have Harbaugh. And again, at the end of the game, you see them hugging each other. They both knew what was up, mutually parting ways, whatever. But it was the end of an era, right? Harbaugh comes in 4 years. They make 3 NFC championships, make 1 Super Bowl, and then they go 8-8 in his last year. Never had a losing year here. You just understand that Jim Harbaugh is not everybody's speed all the time. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to speculate into the friction, but that one definitely felt like we're starting over, right? Like, it's just like, okay, now what? Because literally Jim Harbaugh, save for a few draft picks, essentially took over the same roster that Mike Singletary did. And then they went 13-3.
Yep.
It felt like whoever they were going to bring in was going to be not live up to expectations. And then boom, it's Jim Tom Sula.
Jim Tom.
And it's like, Dark Ages are back here again.
Man, looking like he owns the Sabaros. What are you doing coaching a football team?
Dude, again, we just watched Dan Campbell, yell it up with all that crap. That was that was the Dan Campbell of Jim Tom Sula's right there. Like, I don't even know what to say with
Dan, what are you doing?
If I'm the owner and I watch that press conference and I'm like, oh shit, we just made a mistake.
I'm sorry, you wanted to do what to kneecaps?
Yeah.
Here's my thing, right? Tomorrow's your press conference. We're gonna introduce you. That man sat in the mirror and rehearsed that shit.
Oh,
and that's what he came up with.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
exactly.
Say,
Yeah,
hey, calm
he
down,
knew the
Mr.
questions that were
Lebowski.
going to come, the lightweight questions of how do you see this team? How are you going to be? And he did. He rehearsed that going, we're going to fucking fight to the, yeah.
I don't know how many kneecaps people have.
Yeah.
But I mean, once it's after 2, I'm out of answers for you.
Yeah, you got it. All right, man.
so-
Moving on. This is the
Yes.
last section. We want to know your future expectation for your Niners. You guys had the 12th overall pick. You have 2 in the top 50. You're going to the Senior Bowl, so you're getting an up close and personal view of some of these guys. Is there a position? Is there a player? Is there anything that you specifically want to go after? We know quarterback might be a little bit up in the air. Cornerback, defense. Where do you want to go here?
So for a team that has so many free agents, right, you can't plug all the holes, right? You have to do what you can in the draft. You have to do what you can in free agency. The COVID throws a monkey wrench into everything because the salary cap was supposed to rise. And now, we have pretty good information that we think it may stay the same, which I think is you can't ask for anything more than that if it stays the same, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
This team this year with all the injuries still put out a top 5 defense. Credit all to Robert Saleh. Credit all to Robert Saleh for that. How? I have no idea, right? I mean, I do have an idea, but you really shouldn't have been able to put a defense that good on the field, right? Save for Brian Allen against Miami, every single week this team was probably in a game with a chance to win, but it all comes down to one thing, and it's quarterback play. I'm not here to dump on Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not here to take shots at Jimmy Garoppolo. This team needs an upgrade. When you see in the Super Bowl, right, the little bit that I subjected myself to of watching was, everybody always asks me, well, you got to keep running the ball in the fourth quarter. You don't when the box are stacked 9 guys in the box, right? Basically daring a guy to make a throw on you, right? If Jimmy Garoppolo makes 1 or 2 throws, and I'm not even talking about the Emmanuel Sanders throw, 1 or 2 throws to keep a drive going, the 49ers are Super Bowl champions, right? When you hear Frank Clark say, yeah, we wanted to make sure that he threw the ball, Mr. Checkdown. When you hear Tyrann Mathieu say, that's exactly what we wanted, sounds like the book is out on you now, right? And that's exactly what you saw this year, right? In the limited time that you saw him there, right? It wasn't a guy who took a step. It's not a guy who, for what you're paying, can lift up other situations or anything like that. And what I mean by that is Aaron Rodgers had a terrible draft class. They took a quarterback in the first round, didn't give him anything, MVP. I'm not trying to say that you need to be Aaron Rodgers, but the higher tier guys lift things up, and they lift things up when they're not playing well. He's missing Bakhtiari the whole time, still an MVP, right? Like he gets hurt and all that stuff. So it's clear this team's a quarterback away. And when you hear other people talk about, don't let them get Matt Stafford, don't let them get Deshaun Watson, that's why. It's because of that. Now you're bringing back this defense where even if DeMeco Ryans is the defensive coordinator, which he is, bringing back Nick Bosa makes your defense that much easier to call, right? Like, I'm not trying to take a dump on Robert Saleh, but, in 19, it's like, okay, sit in cover 3, Bosa and Ford are going to go get you,
That's
and
the biggest acquisition. Yep.
Yeah, you can't do anything about that. So Bosa being there a whole next year, I expect this defense to be right where they're at, top 5, top 7, and with just and this has been my point all year. If the 49ers had a 10 to 15% increase in quarterback play between all 3 of them, they make the playoffs this year. They do. How many games were kicked away because of interceptions? It's just, it's mind-boggling. So it's quarterback. I hate to be the guy that's being sensationalized, but if the 49ers were to find a way to bring in Watson to get a Matthew Stafford, the league is not going to look at that like, oh, whatever. They're going to be like, oh my God, now Shanahan has a guy who can push the ball down the field with ease. That's what I want.
Do you think it's possible you could bring in Watson? Because I don't think it's possible.
No, I don't think so either.
Just
I think
the capital, the
that's off the table.
Houston's I mean,
Houston's
if
gonna
you
want
guys had
everything.
him, it'd be ridiculous because that offense is way too good to for him not to succeed in it.
Houston's going to want everything, and they should. As stupid as they are for even trading him, and I think I said this on my pod, like, all right, if you want to be dumb enough to trade Deshaun Watson, go ahead. But if you're going to be dumb enough, like, make sure that you get a haul. Like, get as many picks as possible. Come on. And why wouldn't you?
If Jalen Ramsey and Jamal Adams got 2 first-rounders for them, what is Deshaun Watson going to cost? It's going to be through the roof. Yeah, I feel you. You mentioned a couple guys that are expiring this year. On the defensive side, Richard Sherman, Solomon Thomas, Jaquiski Tart. On the offensive side, Trent Williams, Kyle Juszczyk, Kendrick Bourne. That's just the short list of guys. Is there one guy in that little section that you'd like to bring back for this year?
Yeah. And this is an unpopular opinion. I have two guys on the defensive side that I want to bring back. I want to bring back Jason Verrett. That's not an unpopular opinion, right? No. And this is maybe just the skeptic in me. Yeah. I'm just scared that what happened last year is not the exception. It's the exception to the rule about his injury history. So, like, again, Jason Verrett has played his way into a considerable market. And he deserves every dollar. Like, I'm always pro player. Yeah. Go get your money. But if the 49ers throw, a considerable amount of money to him guaranteed, and then, unfortunately, knock on wood, maybe something like that pops up where it's like the knee again or something like that and he gets hurt, then it's a little bit of sunk cost. But the guy that I want to bring back, and, a lot of people don't, Jaquiski Tart. Like, it's so weird, like, with this fan base and how much hate Jaquiski Tart and Jimmy Ward get. Jimmy Ward was incredible this year, and nobody wants to talk about that. Everybody wants to say, oh, no interceptions. No, there's a lot more to the position. The reason that you don't see those big plays happen is because Ward and Tart are so solid on the back end. Look, I love Tarvarius Moore. I think Marcel Harris is good. Look at the coverage bust when both those guys were out. In the Buffalo game, in the Arizona game, there's coverage busts everywhere. Guys are not covering where they are. The reason that you don't hear Tart and Ward's name called is because they're doing their job. Like, you never, like, all right, so you want turnovers, that's fine. I prefer the guys who are going to keep everything in front of them and not allow big plays. And that's really what I like about them, So it's strange. Sometimes 49er fans just get in their head like, oh, well, this guy hasn't had an interception. Yeah, but there's a lot more to his position and what he does, and the flexibility he gives a play caller because he can play man. He can play in the box. He can play up top. Like that. Like Jimmy Ward's that good. It was never a question about his talent. It was always about his injuries. And the last 2 years, he's basically played full seasons.
That same thing with Verrett, and I'm kind of disappointed that I left him off that list because he's a great corner, and I think he should have been at the top of that list, especially for defensive players. And
you have to bring back Trent Williams. Like that's not, for you to trade a third and then to lose him, that's a loss. Horrible business.
That's a loss. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm kind of on the way of like putting Tarvarius Moore and Ward back there. I mean, I loved Ward. He definitely proved himself into the deal that he definitely got. But I mean, when it comes to interceptions, I mean, I'm not really too afraid about that because if you look at Nobney when he was with Oakland and you look at Byron Jones when he was with Dallas, they didn't get interceptions, but they locked their players down. And that's what Jimmy Ward did, and he was a tone setter. I mean, look what he did in the Super Bowl. He set the tone. Yeah, he fucked up his shoulder, but he still came back and played a great game. Like, I'm a big fan of him. I love Tarvarius Moore for sure. Maybe he needs to play a little bit. But as far as like Jaquiski Tart, I mean, I'm kind of on the fence of him, to be honest with you. I'm kind of the guy. I'm not saying like he sucks, he's terrible, blah blah blah. I'm kind of on the fence with him because like
it's injuries.
It's injuries, exactly. Yeah. It's injuries for sure.
It's injuries, and I think he'd tell you like if he put 16 together, then you're talking about Pro Bowl or All Pro. He just hasn't been able to do it, unfortunately.
Yeah,
that's very true.
Yeah. Gee, you got anything about ownership or coaching? I mean, you guys don't really have your defense. I mean, D'Amico Ryans, I think, is lined up to be takeover right there, but it's not official yet. I know you're happy with Shanahan. I know McDaniels is going to keep the offense pretty much running the same hand in hand with Shanahan. You have anything with ownership, coaching, anything like that?
I mean, as far as like the offense goes, I mean, we brought in Skaggs. I mean, you saw what he did with Jimmy in that short period of time. I mean, yeah, Jimmy was smart already for sure. But the thing is about Jimmy, we saw his ceiling. And, I'm kind of ready to move on. Kind of want some more athletic. But when it comes to the defensive side, I'm glad they kept D'Amico. I'm really glad. I mean, look what the growth we did with all the linebackers. Kind of on the same path. I mean, I think, Jason, you can agree. Kind of on the same path as how Salah was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the thing, right? It's funny. Salah is so fascinating to me. First year, we got to get rid of this guy. He stinks. But he did exactly what you want coaches to do. He improved. And this year was a masterclass in creating pressure with K1, with corner blitzes, with whatever he could, because you don't have that luxury, right? And then, gradually switching from a cover 3 team to straight up man, basically. A lot of quarters. A lot of people didn't notice that. A lot of quarters, a lot of things on the back end, especially when Sherman wasn't there, right? Because it's harder to run man with Sherman, right? That's just something that you wouldn't have run even during his prime. That's just not what he's meant to do.
Deep thirds dude.
Yeah, and he gets by on his smarts. Like that is the smartest football player I think I've ever watched, man. Yeah. He knows what guys are doing before they do it, and that's why he's successful. And don't be surprised, no matter where he goes next year, if he follows Saleh to the Jets, don't be surprised if halfway through the season we're like, how is he still performing again this year? He gets off of that calf injury, which I think bothered him all year. If he gets off of that calf injury and he's anywhere near, what he was, maybe 85%, 70% of what he was over there, man, in that division with who you're going to have to cover at receiver, he should be fine, man. But it's weird with Saleh, man, and then like, I love the thing with D'Amico, right? Because D'Amico brings continuity. And I think this speaks to Kyle Shanahan, and not only with the deep roster, this coaching roster, bro. Like you ready to lose Saleh. You've been talking about it all year. Cool, we got D'Amico. Keep going. I don't know if D'Amico's going to run as much wide 9. I don't know if he's going to be all cover 3, but I do know that Kyle Shanahan has a good track record, and when he talks about guys, they usually are good. Saleh got his job based off of all of that. So D'Amico is going to put the linebackers, like Fred Warner's best year is going to be next year. Hands down. As much as you think it's this year, if you thought he was all pro Fred this year, wait till what D'Amico does and gives him more on his plate because he's a linebackers coach. Wait till you see what he's going to do this year. You always have to remember when a defensive coordinator is promoted from wherever he is. If it was Joe Woods, all the DBs would have went crazy. If it's D'Amico Ryans, then it's going to be linebackers. So, I love the continuity because I think that at the end of the day, this organization still sees this team as a Super Bowl roster, and you cannot waste Nick Bosa while he's on a rookie deal. You cannot waste this roster when it's there because if Joey Bosa walked in and said, I want $100 million, Nick Bosa needs to walk in and say, I want $200 million. Like he can double up his brother, and his brother's amazing.
Yeah. Very true.
That is completely true. I mean, man, this was one of our longest episodes, and thank you for all the in-depth information and background and this was an awesome episode. I loved every minute of it. G, you got anything?
I don't got anything, but Jason, stick around just for a little bit after, for sure. But that wraps it up on my side. Duran, go ahead, man.
I follow us on Twitter. You see it up here. You can keep up to date on all our episodes. You can follow Jason. All the links below. I'll have them ready to go right there. And thanks for watching. Till next time.
Cheers.
Thank you, guys.